these boys want to feel like they're sticking it to the man and they're like, have this at odds opinion, but really they're doing the most sheeple thing possible, just following an algorithm into the far right. Whereas girls, in my opinion, teen girls are being subversive as shit by using these profit-making platforms to turn them into community building platforms. Like, that's actually subversive and contrarian.
What's up, liberals? This week we are going to do 2 segments separate for FY Pod. Tonight we are going to speak with Deja Fox, the founder of GenZ Girl Gang, and just yet another Gen Z guest of ours who has done so much more than I have. And then tomorrow, Tim and I are going to be talking about the little dweebs at the DOGE. And maybe, if I get lucky, I'll get to talk about the episode of the Alec Baldwin reality show that I sat through. Stay tuned.
All right, y'all, we are back with Deja Fox. She's a organizer in Arizona, internet friend of Cam. She runs the GenZ Girl Gang. What's happening, girl?
Internet friend of Cam is a new introduction for me, but I think I'm going to work it into all of my bios from here on out.
We've made it to the corporeal form. It was an accurate description for a while, but then we became 4-dimensional to one another.
Wow. Major. Internet and in real life. IRL friends, even.
Do you think I was taller or shorter than I appeared to be on social media?
I actually couldn't tell you how tall you are now, but I think that is because I'm short and it's a matter of relative perspective. So I don't ever know how tall anyone is.
I think we'll just run with that narrative and hop right in.
For the listeners who don't know you, can we just get a little Deja life? Like give us a just description of your life,
Sure.
Just
the rundown of my life story. And you're locked in. Absolutely. So my name is Deja Fox. I am a content creator, a digital strategist, the girl's girl in chief at GenZ Girl Gang, which is a digital collective that's committed to redefining the practice of sisterhood in digital spaces. I got my start organizing when I was 15 around better sex ed in Arizona because I experienced something that 1 in 30 teens in the US go through, which is hidden homelessness. I didn't have a home of my own. I lived with my boyfriend and his family. And I learned the power of storytelling and organizing in that local context, and then scaled up under the first Trump administration, fighting for birth control and abortion. And then I spent time at Columbia, where I studied media, and I worked for Kamala Harris on her first presidential run as the Influencer and Surrogate Strategist.
Nice. So, I mean, everybody's kind of a content creator now, but I like that you led with that. So the hidden homelessness is like, you're crashing on couches, basically. It
can look like lots of different things, but in its essence, it means you don't have a home of your own.
Got it. And so what at 15, as somebody that was homeless or hidden homeless, gave you like the gumption to be like, I'm going to go be an activist now, rather than just, to kind of survive?
Well, being an activist is about surviving, right? I knew I needed access to sex education and birth control to have control over my body and the living situation I was in, right? And so for me, politics was never something I learned in a classroom or through the news, right? Like my politic was deeply personal. And so when I showed up to my senator's town hall when I was 16, which was my first viral video, so you're absolutely right, everyone's a content creator. And
what senator?
I'll tell you in just a sec. So when I was 16 under the first Trump administration, my then Senator Jeff Flake, Republican of Arizona, had voted to defund Planned Parenthood, which essentially meant stripping Planned Parenthood centers of Title X funding. And Title X funding provided birth control at no cost to nearly 4 million, I think over 4 million folks, myself included, when I didn't have money or parents or insurance, and I walked into a Planned Parenthood and left with 6 months of birth control. And my senator had voted to strip that funding, stripped me of my ability to access that care. And so when I went to his town hall, I asked him why he as an old white man was making those decisions about me and my body. And he told me, he was like, I support policies that support the American dream. And I asked him why he would deny me the American dream if no copay birth control was helping me to be successful and reach for higher education, which, spoiler alert, I go on to be the first of my family to go to college. I got a full ride to Columbia. I graduated. But that is in large part because I had access to the reproductive care I needed when I needed it and at no cost.
Well, after I had a viral confrontation with my Republican senator who probably voted to defund Planned Parenthood, I got into Columbia and they didn't give me shit. So you slayed with that.
Well, because I think you went GS, right?
Yeah.
General studies. So I had to, for my full ride situation, I could never switch into general studies, which gave me more flexibility. Instead, I was like forced to do full-time classes and also full-time work, which was its own absolute shit show. College was a toughie.
For those of you who don't know, General Studies is a program at Columbia that's flexible for people who are pursuing their professional careers. So you could take extended periods of time off. You could have a flexible class schedule. And this isn't on the website or part of the admissions process, but they also fucking hate your guts. They won't give you shit. They treat you like the scum of Columbia. And it's really hard to make other 18-year-old friends if you are the very rare 18-year-old GS student. Most of the GS students were adults who were already well into their careers, actors, veterans, people who already had something going on for them. Meanwhile, I was fucking waving through a window to try and meet anybody. And all this is to say,
what a burden. This is why you're a podcaster now, you know?
This is why I'm a podcaster now. So I only went for a little bit, but you slayed. I wish I had tried to do what you did, if they would have even fucking given me one, by the way. And what did you study?
I was in the Center for the Study of Ethnicity and Race, and I made my own concentration in media, which meant that I got to think a lot about, in an academic sense, our media environment, and specifically the role that teen girls play on social media.
That is so lucky for you. They've had to shut down the Center for Ethnicity and Race during Trump 2.0, I think. So unfortunately, all of those DEI degrees are gone, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the Center for the Study of Ethnicity and Race is gone.
Okay, they're allowed to stay?
Caesar's still around.
They're allowed to stay?
Yeah,
Watch out! Watch out! They might.
We'll
They're going to be in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
So educate us about the GenZ Girl Gang. I've got a couple questions. I've been on your about page, but I want to hear what you think about it.
So it started out of my college dorm because I was so used to in Arizona, right? You can imagine what a tremendous shift it was to go from being working at a gas station, organizing in a grassroots way with people I'd known my whole life, to a dorm room at Columbia, first in family to go to college, encountering a kind of wealth I didn't even know existed before I got there. And so it really redefined for me what community meant, right? Community to me, up until the point at which I started college, was always the people who lived around you. It was your neighbors, it was your friends, it was your family, your classmates. And when I got to Columbia, I realized that I shared very little with the majority of my classmates. And so instead, I started to look, okay, then where are these moments of community building happening for me? Like, who is in my corner? And the answer was mostly other young women that I was meeting online, like on Instagram. Like my Instagram besties were who were getting me through that very first, very hard year of transition at Columbia. And so GenZ Girl Gang was born out of this idea that teen girls are building new ways of being in relationship to each other by the very nature of being the first generation to come of age online. And they're building these friendships that, you know, might seem kind of frivolous to the average onlooker, but to me are really revolutionary. Like they're making distance disappear. I think if you told a boomer like, hey, I've never met my best friend in real life, but these are the ways that she's impacted me, right? Like she's put me onto this job opportunity and she supported me through a really hard breakup and helped me like through FaceTimes get through my study sesh. Like she's my friend, even though I've never met her. That would like blow a boomer's mind.
I'm a boomer, I guess, because that's blowing my mind. That's your bestie? You have a bestie that you've never met IRL?
Yeah, my best friends were people that I've met online. And, you know, I have this really interesting story that I've been reflecting on lately, which was that, especially as we see these social media sites go swing right, But, in 2021, so in the middle of the pandemic, hard lockdown, I was cyber mobbed. So I had an instance where a girl took a screenshot of one of my TikToks, put it on Twitter with the caption, "New enemy just dropped." And tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were engaging with this. I was like, my personal information was shared,
What did you do to become an enemy?
I don't know. I had my own political opinions, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I share that to say that the platforms really didn't have a solution for me to stop this cross-platform targeted attack at scale. And instead, what ended up happening was one of my friends, Maya, who I had only ever met online, who was a member of GenZ Girl Gang, sent me a text and she asked if she could have my passwords, and she logged in to my accounts and deleted things, hateful comments, DMs, before I could even see them. And I share that story because she is, to this day, one of my best friends. We spend lots of time in real life together now. But because it highlights exactly how young women are creating these relationships that build resiliency for them to show up, not just in their real lives, but also in the public discourse online. And that they really build professional and personal well-being for each other in platforms and social media spaces that are not built for them. So, some of my besties are my digital besties. Hence the introduction, Cam's online friend.
Tim, our guest last week, Ellie Schnitt, who is a wonderful person and a very insightful person. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, you ought to, because she says some stuff that is really interesting. We dated for 8 months.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. And we met on Twitter.
Period.
Just DM'd.
That was how we met. It wasn't a speed dating event. It wasn't at the local pub. It wasn't through a mutual friend. We had mutual friends, but it wasn't through a mutual friend. We were just
I think they call that a slide. You just slid into our DMs.
I don't want to put it like that, mostly because I don't like the implications of that. But hypothetically, if somebody else did exactly what I did, I would probably say that they slid into the DMs.
It is not insane to me that somebody might meet on the internet. But I just, the notion that you create an entire friend group based around an online community of people you haven't met, that's another step from I followed you on Twitter.
I think also people who struggle to socialize in person, they find community online with other people who like the same stuff as them. So, you see fandoms, for example, and I'm not necessarily talking about the Swifties or the Bayhive necessarily, but I'm talking about, the people who are playing online Dungeons & Dragons and the people on the same comic book forums that I'm on. I got a buddy who I hang out with in person all the time. I guess this isn't the best example because he's a pretty social guy, but we met because I was following his fan page for The Flash, a superhero who I don't even really give a shit about because his power set is completely inconsistent and it makes no sense. And you read the comic books and you're like, you know what? He's as powerful as the writer says he is. Whatever. Point is, people find community online often through shared interest, whether that's shared political values. I mean, I try to make as few friendships based on shared political values as possible because most of the people who share my political values are fucking annoying.
Yeah.
So normally if I find somebody who agrees with me on most of my policy positions, I'm like, okay, great. This is a great person to repost. I don't know if this is somebody I want to kick it with.
Well, this is a good way to follow up, though, is an issue, I guess, Deja. You don't have control. It's not, I guess maybe you do. Do you get to pick who gets to be in the girl gang? What happens if you get a bunch of girls who share your political values but are also super annoying? What happens then? Is the girl gang fragile?
Is the girl gang fragile? No, the girl gang is not very fragile. It's actually very resilient. But there's tiers to any sort of organization. So at our core, we have a leadership team that runs the account, right? Manages the everyday. And that group of people, also mostly folks that I had never met in real life, they came to us through the internet. We built relationships. They got brought onto the team. But I think in terms of our general community, right, like who's engaging with us, you can see what you see on Instagram is one level, but we also have been investing in getting off platforms like Instagram and moving away from any social media that's from the top down, that values big followings over dense followings. And so we've been moving to places like Discord, where our community members can build relationships with one another, not just with us or with our values or with our content or our mission, right? Like we want our community members to be engaging. And so to answer your question about like, do we pick who's in there? Yeah. No, but we have community guidelines, right? Like we have a standard to which we hold our community, so that way we can keep the space fun and engaging and useful to our community members. And a really good example of that is how we engage on Discord.
So you having like real world meetups? Are you doing activism based off of it? Like what's happening off of the phone?
Well, I would argue that girls being friends and sharing opportunities is activism, because
I'm with you.
We really need people to be in community with one another now, like more than ever. Like gathering as a young person is hard. There's not a lot of third spaces, which is like already like a buzzword, but like young people are being priced out of their ability to like make friends and make community outside of their jobs. And so, yes, we host in real life gatherings. We would do, for the past few years, we've done back to school survival summits, which is like, we've done them virtually in real life. But it was really interesting, especially right after the pandemic, we hosted one. And it was this moment where, if you can imagine, 50%, if not more, of students had never been on a college campus before, right? Upon return. The freshmen were new. The sophomores had only done it on Zoom. Many of the juniors even had been in and out of Zoom classes at some point. And so there was this moment of reset in youth, in real life spaces even, right? Not just on campuses, but like even when we talk about like, how do you engage with people out at the bar? Like young people are engaging differently in real life because of our experience with the pandemic and the years in which we had to socialize online. And so GenZ Girl Gang is focused on building digital community spaces, but we also have these in real life pop-ups. We just hosted a free meetup at the park where we did like a craft day, and we got 100 and something RSVPs because girls are hungry to go hang out in real life at a low cost that they can afford and spend time together.
All right. I'm sorry, Cam. I'm over talking you. You can take it from here, but I'm just, she's saying interesting things and I keep having
Tim just really
questions.
wants an invite to the GenZ Girl
I do.
Gang,
Well, I want to hang out with the GenZ Girl Gang
journaling event.
I'm not a crafter, but I do kind of just want to vibe. But
gay uncle is a perfect person to have at a GenZ Girl Gang event. Everybody needs their gunkle.
Gunkle is a perfect person.
Yeah, GenZ Gunkle Gang.
I'm like, just put me in the grave now. But my follow up was I forgot who we were talking to, but like there's a big article my friend Derek Thompson wrote, and we were talking about this on another episode about how like a lot of boys were embittered. Like you say, like 50% of people post-pandemic hadn't been on campus. And like, I'm actually like sympathetic to this. Like they lost years. They felt like maybe they didn't have to, or they shouldn't have, the shutdown shouldn't have been for as long because like young people weren't dying really. Right. And like, they're pissed and they went MAGA, right? Like they're like, this is, we're generalizing, but like, this is like a little bit of a trend. Like, why don't you think that happened? Like, why do you think women had a different experience, right? Because like many of people in your group, like they lost high school graduations or college graduations or college freshman year. And like, that sucks. Like, so why do you think they reacted differently?
That's such a good question. I don't often get asked questions I've never been asked before, but that's a different framing of this question. And I appreciate it because the question I often get is, what are you doing to get those boys on your side? And I'm like, that's not my job, but y'all go do that. But I too am sympathetic to this, right? And I think some of what's so disappointing about it, and to the question of why them and not us on this like far right radicalization, has to do with algorithms and who's being tracked toward which content. And it is a fact that gender plays a role in how algorithms on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, decide what you should see, right? Like when you make your profile, you give it very little information about yourself, maybe your age and your gender. And it starts from there. And so if you can imagine these like 12, 13-year-old boys getting on YouTube and being tracked into content that radicalizes them to the right. I know I talk to so many of my friends who have little brothers that are like, I don't know what happened to him during the pandemic. Like, this is so weird. Like, me and my family are all good Dems, right? Like, we believe these things. We raised him differently. But we have to understand that young people, the way they're building their sense of self, their communities, and their political opinions is more individualized than it ever has been, like in the course of history. It used to be that the number one determining factor of how you would vote was how your parents voted. And that's just not true anymore because we have these like very isolated experiences of self and community and political opinion building, right, on our phones. And the truth is that these boys are being tracked into algorithms by companies that profit off of them into far right beliefs. And so you didn't ask me for the solution. And to be honest, not completely my job because I'm for the girls, but I think we really need to be taking a hard look at the accountability of not just, not just generalizing and saying it's an algorithms problem, but those algorithms are made by people and controlled by companies with whom we can and should have sway. So that's my long and short of it.
And, it happens to be that the people who run all of those companies were writing like $1 million+ checks for Trump's inauguration and are playing buddy buddy with Trump now. And the whole myth of liberal big tech has fallen apart. I personally think most of the liberal big tech thing, I think that even when they were, putting rainbows on their logos every now and again, they were still right wing. I think that a lot of that was just, and this might be, reductive because they were in San Francisco, but they left San Francisco. They left San Francisco a fucking shell of a city. It's a disaster. And now they're doing right-wing social media from right-wing places like Texas. So it's really interesting. This is not nearly as insightful as what you said. This is actually almost anti-insightful. So I feel like there's no...
Say the quiet part out loud, though. That's what we need to do. Go.
Okay. Unfortunately, this is just the medium volume part, but just for the sake of transparency and honesty, which is, dare I say, the number one guiding principle of the FY pod, I get fed a lot of right-wing content, and that is my fault, and I take full accountability because I am a hate watcher. I watch shit because it pisses me off so much, and if I see the Charlie Kirk video on my For You page, which, inspired a For You pod, I'll click on it just to be like, this fucking prick. And here's what I would have said if I was debating you, Charlie. So my algorithm is mostly Legos and X-Men, but then also right-wing content because I hate watch it. And that really offers nothing to what you were just saying, which was so insightful. But what I will say is, yeah, a lot of the guys that I've seen turn to the right, the people who I keep somewhat tangential or present in my life who have moved to the right, and I've sort of just made the compromise that I'm not going to cut them out of my life. Instead, I'm going to try to patiently push them in the directions that I think they need to be pushed in because, when so much of being on the right is isolation and feeling like there's no room for you elsewhere. So I play nice with a lot of people that I've known in my life who have turned to the right simply because the thing that I want them to have the most is somebody saying positive things in their ear and seeing what kind of difference that will make. But to what you were saying, a lot of the young men I've seen turn to the right have like lib parents and lib siblings. My brother is like, owns the assault rifle that was used at my high school and is like a regular listener of the Ben Shapiro show. And my whole family, I don't know if there's anything in the world that makes my father angrier than like Trump, even when he's like not even doing that much. Like even during the short period of time during the Biden administration where Trump was, for Trump, quiet, not quiet, but relative to Trump, quiet, it was still the first thing that would come up at every dinner. And yet my brother is like, he's not waving around, American flags and wearing MAGA hats, but he has really responded to the right in a family where his younger brother is, and I can scientifically prove this with data, the wokest white man in Gen Z, maybe in America.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we love your dad. We love TDS parents. So I have, not to be like the gender is a mutable trait, gives you immutable traits guy, but like there are some differences. I don't know. I'm listening to you guys and I'm like, there's something about boys that like make them want to be contrarian. It's just like you just kind of see it. Obviously, like we're painting with a broad brush, and like they're contrary examples to all these things. And like girls like are more like empathetic. I don't know. Like my daughter's in all girls school, and just like the way the 7-year-old girls treat each other is just different than the way 7-year-old boys treat each other. Like on average, like not in every situation. And I guess I just think that maybe the COVID thing, like maybe in boys, like triggered this like fuck the man, fuck you feeling, and in girls like triggered like a empathy. Oh my, I feel so bad for, your family member that got sick, like maybe more of a community and agreeableness. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too like men are for Mars, women are for Venus for you guys. But like, what do you make of that? Is there something there?
Well, I would add that boys go to Jupiter to get more stupider, but, that might be reductive.
Yeah, no, I think there's something to that.
But okay, here's my thought on that too. And I think it's so interesting to bring up the playground example, right? Because these are kids pre-iPad even, right? Like
right.
You see that when girls and boys play, they play differently. And girls are very responsive to the needs of the other girls around them. Like they're more likely to bring each other in or, to notice when someone needs something or is being left out. And we even see that like on a flip side that like the kind of violence that's enacted in like a middle school amphitheater, like girls, it's like psychological, like they know how to exclude or include, and boys are like pushing each other around. I hear you a little bit on that to say that I think during the pandemic, girls had an experience where they turned to the internet and spaces like GenZ Girl Gang that were born pre-pandemic, saying that we were already building digital communities, already building relationships out of need online. And that when we were looking at our survival strategies in digital spaces, it was about coming together, right? And like sticking together, standing up for each other. And I think in part of that, and that word contrarian is interesting to me because I hear that, these boys want to feel like they're sticking it to the man and they're like, have this at odds opinion, but really they're doing the most sheeple thing possible, just following an algorithm into the far right. Whereas girls, in my opinion, teen girls are being subversive as shit by using these profit-making platforms to turn them into community building platforms. Like that's actually subversive and contrarian. And so I think maybe girls get their contrarian kicks by just being community builders and like existing on spaces that weren't meant for them.
Those cringe male feminists who think that being a nice guy and not like the other guys is the best way to market yourself in dating? So I'm going to do exactly that by quoting bell hooks.
Did you just Google it though? Because I saw your screen light up. Did you Google the quote?
It's from All About Love. But in my defense, I knew what the quote I was going to look for was. I wasn't just blindly bell hooks searching. I just don't want to misquote bell hooks. And out of respect for the integrity of bell hooks, I'm also going to remind everybody that every time I say it, it's in all lowercase because that is how bell hooks presents bell hooks. But to quote bell hooks, because I am, just to be clear, not like those other boys. I'm a nice boy. The wounded child inside many males is a boy who, when he first spoke his truths, was silenced by a paternal sadism, by a patriarchal world that did not want him to claim his true feelings. The wounded child inside many females is a girl who was taught from early childhood that she must become something other than herself, deny her true feelings in order to attract and please others. Now, I think that we are seeing a lot of young women move towards claiming those feelings and move towards celebrating each other's acceptance of those feelings and growth of those feelings. But the reason that I bring that quote up when it comes to young men being silenced by paternal sadism in a
They're Gen X
patriarchal
dads.
world is
They're
that
fucking Gen X dads.
I don't know how much, I don't know, truly, I really don't know how much the male tendency towards violence and towards contrarianism and towards, trying to be more aggressive. I don't know how much of that is chromosomal, and I don't know how much of that is because young men are taught by the society that we live in from a very young age that power is in the damage we can deal, not in the love we can spread. One of the things that is one of the themes of the YA fantasy novel that I've tried to write for the past 8 months and haven't gotten more than 10 pages into because I'm not very good at painting a scene. And it's turned out really bad every time. But one of the themes I'm trying to do in my YA fantasy novel is that power is not measured by what we can take from others. It is measured by what we can give. And I think that young men are taught by our society before they're even at the playground, in the way that they watch their fathers behave, in the way that they watch, well, I say the way that we watch men behave in movies and on TV. We are taught that to demonstrate power and to be a man is to use that power in order to diminish others and, to rise up. You need to rise up by knocking other people down a peg, not by lifting other people up.
I love Deep Cam. Deep Cam, not sarcastic Cam, is out today. That's great.
There's always emotional truth to sarcastic Cam. There is never not emotional truths being held space for.
That is true. That is true. We do always hold space for your emotions. Okay. I have 2 more things for Deja before we get to the boomer mailbag, which is becoming the highlight of the show. I want to pick on you first and then ask you an earnest question second. Okay.
Go for
So
it.
I'm going to read something from the Gen Z Girl Gang.
Okay.
This is how you describe yourself. Founding in 2019 in NYC, Gen Z Girl Gang centers Gen Z Wimkson and Femmes
This
as
was a different
leaders and
era.
content creators.
Where did you
Okay,
find
are we
this,
still
first of all?
Megan Kelly is going to come for you if you do not change your about page. Okay.
All right.
What
Did
are
you-
Wimkson
okay.
and Femmes? What are
To be
Femmes?
so clear, there was a time in which everyone was using that. Okay. Okay.
Including you, Tim. You just forget.
Including
Yeah,
me. I never wrote
Tim.
Wimkson, and I still don't know what a Femmes is. Is that a
Okay, femmes is something we still say. We still say
what,
women.
what
and
is that?
femmes.
What is it?
Google's free, Tim. But
That's why I'm having the podcast. You
Google's-
people are supposed to tell me.
Google's free.
Oh, like a lesbian, like a femme les.
no. Well,
No?
yes, you could use it in that way, but also it's to acknowledge that for Gen Z Girl Gang, and this was where we were using that like women with an X term, which I also, we've scrubbed that because I think as a collective we've decided that's not like useful.
Anything you can't
But
pronounce.
here's
is
the
not great.
difference, right? This is what we're trying to get across at Gen Z Girl Gang.
Okay.
Is that we're open not just to people who identify necessarily with the word girl, right? That this is a space for people who are of all marginalized genders, right? Like this is a safe space for people who are across the gender spectrum, a marginalized gender. So that could be, non-binary folks, women, girls,
Femmes.
femmes. Exactly. And it's just about saying that, like, it's not a space that's not for men, but it is a space that is for everyone but men. like centering, saying
Okay.
that this space is designed, there's enough spaces, believe you me, that are designed for men. Actually,
Golf
the
course.
majority of our spaces are. And so this is something, though, you're pointing out a really interesting rub that not just Gen Z Girl Gang and digital spaces are trying to figure out, but even like campaigns, political parties, brands are trying to figure out, which is how do we talk about gender in a way that acknowledges that we've moved past that binary a little bit, right?
Yeah.
As a collective, we all have a better understanding of the multitude of the expressions of gender, but also be acknowledging that we're centering the experiences of non-men. We're at the mind less of like, we're going to police who's in here, and
Sure.
more of like a flies to honey thing. We are so firmly rooted in girl culture that if you're fucking with what we put out there, you're probably one of the girls, gays, and theys, right? Like you're probably under our umbrella.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, that's sort of where we come at from it, but it's not perfect. And I think it is something, I said this earlier, but it's the sort of thing that parties, brands, organizations, nonprofits, like are all sort of struggling to figure out. And it's going to get harder under an administration that's like telling us we can't do like these DEI exclusive groups, that spaces like these that are specific to a group that create like a sense of belonging for people that don't, for whom general spaces, normal spaces are not built for, that these like subcultures and subspaces we're building are sort of in danger in this moment.
You were in Arizona organizing. Do you have any like lessons from that? Like it's
much.
It's going to be an important state. So just kind of give us your little spiel on what you learned in Arizona.
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Arizona. I'm from Tucson. And I recently moved back about a year ago. I made the choice to leave New York, move back to a hometown. And
Right
really
around when we started hanging out, by the way, but I don't take it personally.
It actually was just to get away from Cam.
I get it.
Singular motivation. So being back home during the election cycle was really important to me on a personal level for two reasons. The first being that I work in the digital space, and the literal physical architecture of New York makes me feel claustrophobic. And when I walk out in Arizona, walk out of my front door, I see like massive mountains and a gorgeous blue sky that reminds me that the world is bigger than fucking TikTok. Full stop, period. And that was really good for avoiding mentee bees during the election cycle.
Yeah.
Second thing that was really important about the move for me back to Arizona on a personal and professional level was that the same organizers that brought me into this work at 15, that taught me about the reproductive justice framework, that held my voice, that taught me how to tell my story, and power map, and just like the fundamentals of what it meant to be an organizer are there. These are people I've been organizing with since before the first Trump administration. And it is a deep reminder to me when I go to their baby showers and baptisms of their kids and barbecues, or we sit and we just hang out and have like, you know, birria or food or whatever, that like when we invest in community, that outlasts election cycles, right? Like the relationships I have with these people are what got me through this election cycle and will get me through whatever happens next. And so being back in that community was incredibly important for me, and that like physical environment. Now, what did I learn that's transferable to you all? I think I hosted these youth listening sessions in Arizona where I would invite young people into my home, into my living room. And sometimes there would be journalists or movement leaders or funders that would come and sit with us. And we would just talk about what they were thinking about before they went to bed. Like, what were they worrying about? What was going on in their group chat? What was the highlight of the week? What was the conversation topic, right? Like, what is the thing they want out of their lives? What do they expect from their politicians? And this learning might not be revolutionary, but I think if we practiced it, it would be. For these young people, their number one worry and their number one aspiration is to live a good life, right? Like, it is cost of living that's fucking them up. They are so disappointed that they cannot move out of their parents' home. They're worried about paying, you know, their car insurance bill this month. They're upset that they can't afford to go out and have drinks with their friends, or even go see a movie, right? Like, for them, their number one issue is cost of living. And we can and should frame issues like, my core advocacy issue is reproductive rights. We can and should frame things like birth control access as a part of living that like American dream good life, right? That when you have control over your body and you can make decisions about if and when to start a family, that you can have that kind of financial stability to enjoy the ease of opportunity and good financial stability. And so that was one of my biggest learnings, and I think is a real downfall when we talk about young people in a political space, is we often decide that the issues they care about are this, this, and that. And instead of integrating them into a framework that acknowledges what they're actually dealing with on a day-to-day, which is like putting gas in their car and like trying to save up enough to move out of their parents' house, we fail to do that. And instead, we give them experiences about abortion, right, that are something that they might have experienced one time, but instead of connecting it to this larger framework of, because you have access to reproductive care and can make decisions about your body, you're able to, afford moving out of your parents' house, go try out that new city, try for that job that you really care about, that makes you feel excited and passionate. So that's one of my biggest learnings about young people in Arizona, is they really care about living a good life that feels safe and stable.
Yeah, living life.
So not to make this about me, but
to make it about you, a young person in New York, a young white man in New York.
Yeah, this. Thank you for calling me young. 24 is really up there. I just wanted to say that monologue especially just had me reflecting on the fact that with the guests we've had so far, and I'm so grateful to you for coming on, it's almost like the second half of our episodes are this sort of humiliation tour for me, where these young people who do so much more than I do, care so much more than I do, and have so much more insights than I do, come on and just share these things that the audience really isn't getting from me. And Tim, I don't think this was our plan from the get-go, but I think that, especially knowing who we're going to have on in the coming weeks, I think that that's what this show has essentially been, is like, hey, remember the kid who started March for Our Lives and the media said that these kids were the future leaders? Here's how far back he has intellectually fallen.
Well, good news, Cam. We're going to bring on a MAGA Zoomer in the next couple of weeks to make you feel good about yourself. So,
okay, anyway, boomer mailbag.
Boomer mailbag.
Okay.
I'm so excited about this one. Last week, we gave great advice to the boomer that wanted to throw ass at the Kendrick Lamar concert. The week before, we took the chastising from the boomer that wanted to tell Cam he's stupid. This week, we have a great question. It comes from Carrie. She's age 73. Her email signature was, sometimes you're the cat and sometimes you're the ball of yarn. That's something to think about.
True.
T.
So
and if you're, and I should have said, if you're a boomer, you should email us at bulwarkpodcast@thebulwark.com. All right, here we go. Boomer mailbag. The other day, a Gen Z guy parked close to me, and I wasn't able to get in my car. He came out of the store, and I asked if he was about to leave so that I could go get to my car. He said yes. But then he got in his car and sat there for 3 to 5 minutes looking at his phone while I stood waiting in the rain. I know I can't generalize his behavior to all young adults, but I feel like the old person shaking my head saying kids these days. Your thoughts?
Yet another boomer mailbag piece where I'm like, okay, they're doing this at all ages. Like, assholes who will sit on their phone and let you stand in the rain. I don't assign an age group to that. Like,
I assigned a gender to that. That was a boy. That was a boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a boy. It was a he, him pronoun. I can confirm.
Gen Z, like, we're addicted to our phones, but I've said this before on FY Pod. I'll say it again. So are all you motherfuckers. So I rebuke that Gen Z-ification of assholes sitting on their phones and not caring about people. Happens all the time. Next question.
All right. Deja, did you have any guidance for Carrie, 73-year-old, bemoaning the youth?
I'm sorry that happened to you, Carrie. I'm sorry you had to stand out in the rain. That's tragic. I hope that he found whatever he wanted to find in his Spotify liked day list.
No. It was an Andrew Tate video. I guarantee you.
Maybe he was trying to find this podcast to put it on. I don't know. I can't speak.
He was on Amazon buying books about radical feminist literature.
Leaving that old woman out in the rain. But also, okay, Carrie, 1 second. Now this is like maybe going to blow her mind. I can't get anywhere without plugging it into my Apple map. Like even back to my own home sometimes. So feel for us. I don't know how to use a map or read street signs. Maybe he just really needed to figure out where he was going.
It could be map illiteracy. It could be map illiteracy. I like that. You're always, this is what I'm saying, always looking out for the better. Always empathy coming from the Gen Z Girl Gang. I like that.
Also, you know what, Carrie? Like, knock on his window. Move your car.
That's another great point.
Knock on his window. If it's an open carry state.
Show some initiative.
That was 73.
If it was an open carry state, I would not recommend that if it was a state where you can open carry. But if it wasn't an open carry state, if it was a blue state, I would say, knock on that window.
Yeah.
Gen Zers on. This guy's not carrying around a gat. Okay, that's great. We go to our final segment, Gen Z News. Sebastian, this is you.
A survey from Storage Cafe ranked the states according to the net migration of Gen Z into the state. So net migration being how many people are coming into the state versus leaving the state. So I wanted to see if you guys could guess the state that you think Gen Z is most moving to.
Texas or Florida?
I'll give you the top 5 after this.
I'm going to say Georgia, Colorado, Texas, Florida, and Arizona, because Deja's bringing them there.
I'm bringing them there. I'm the number 1 Arizona influencer. I'm going to say New York. I think New York has forever youth appeal, despite cost of living being absolutely bananas. I want to say Texas, and I hear that, but I did recently hear a stat, literally yesterday, about how Gen Z women over job opportunities are interested in moving to states that protect their reproductive rights because they're scared to have and start families in places where abortion is outlawed. So I'm going to stick with, I think it's Cali and New York still is bringing the young people. And then I'm going to reluctantly say Texas and then lovingly say Arizona.
All right. So the top state is South Carolina.
So we all lost.
So I don't think anybody.
I think this survey's bullshit. You got to find better surveys.
Again, it's net. It's
right,
not. It's the number of
how many
people
are leaving versus how many are coming in.
It's not like millions of people are moving to South Carolina. It's that rating. Less people are leaving compared to how many are coming into it.
So with that being said, I'm going to paint the picture of why these states are probably there, which is that young people move there and they find jobs and it's great. And also South Carolina has like Charleston is apparently very cool, right? I've heard that.
Charleston's cool. Greenville's okay.
But I think what's keeping young people in states like South Carolina is that they can actually buy homes.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Like people will leave New York eventually because they cannot buy a home. People will leave Texas when they decide they want to have a kid because they can't get adequate care there. Yeah. So I'm wondering if South Carolina has something on of like
what else?
To buy a
North
home.
Carolina?
So it's South Carolina. Then it's Arizona. Deja is number 2.
I'm part of that net movement in.
Then it's North Carolina. Then it's DC. And then it's Florida.
Well,
okay,
DC,
so I got one.
When was that? Since when? Like, when was this done?
This was 2023, I believe.
Okay, because I feel like DC 2024.
Moving out. We're moving out. We're getting away.
Within the next couple of years, Florida is just going to completely change when nobody can get anything insured because the entire state is getting torn apart by hurricanes and insurers are not getting behind that. So we'll see what happens with
Our
Florida.
boy Jared Moskowitz is working on this. They need a fucking insurance plan ASAP.
Yeah. Jared Moskowitz is a progressive hero, so I'm sure he'll get right on that.
Hey, don't you speak ill of your, most famous graduate, non-school shooting victim category.
Dude, let me tell you, Jared Moskowitz and I kind of had a mutual understanding that we weren't friends, I think. I don't know if I'm making that up. And we saw each other at the bagel place in Parkland that I go to that's really fucking good. And Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School father, because Douglas parents always come up to me and think that I want to talk to them when I'm at restaurants in Parkland, and I just try to be open and say hello, nice to meet you.
It's a burden.
He was like, Cameron, you know Jared Moskowitz. And Moskowitz and I had sort of, Moskowitz wouldn't want to hear this word, but we had sort of had a ceasefire where we saw each other and we were like, okay, we're both gonna have breakfast and that's what we're gonna do because you are a person and I am a person and we both have a constitutional right to have fucking breakfast. But this dad, this Parkland father who just had to fucking gab was like, you guys know each other. Cameron was the organizer of the March for Our Lives. Jared, you... And I was like, hey, Jared, how's our mutual affection for the Miami Dolphins? But I digress.
That's how the magic happens on the FY pod. All right, Sebastian, we have time for one more question, and then we're leaving.
So, Tim, you on the fly started Boomer Mailbag as a segment. I'm on the fly doing Is This Cringe?
Okay,
little based off of the DNC list that we showed from the 32 things. So Democratic women of the House appear to have released a collaboration with TikTok influencer Jessica Wu. I don't know if any of you two, Cam or Deja, know who that is. But the right really started mocking it. And I think also some other, like Jake Tapper, started mocking it. But who knows if this really appeals to Gen Z. So I'm going to play it and then you're going to tell me,
great,
is this cringe?
I'm excited for this.
And for the people who are listening on the audio version, I should say that this is a bunch of female Democratic members of Congress who there's no dialogue to it, but people like AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and others essentially donning fighting stances like a video game character selection screen. And there's a couple of bullet points describing like key things about them, accomplishments. That's your descriptor.
Choose your character.
I love Lauren Underwood.
Okay, I feel the need to immediately confess that I was there also filming.
No! You were filming. So you do should confess that, and I was going to let you guys go first, but I should just then get it out there. I thought that was great. That's fine for me. Do it. Great. Do more. Punch people. That's fine. What's wrong with that?
I think it's cringe because the Democrats aren't fighting. So saying choose your fighter is really hot when their version of fighting is holding up little signs that say false during Trump's inauguration. You know, there was
false.
one Democrat who was willing to kick ass up there and he slayed with that. But I mean, using the word fight when your party's version of fighting is politely asking Donald Trump to maybe relax is really really cute. So I meet that with, of course, doing a Super Smash Bros. Thing and doing something camp and goofy as hell like that is hilarious. And I stan and I would always get behind it. But maybe actually fight for fuck's sake.
I'm going to just say so we were in that room, all of us. I shot interviews there too. I didn't do like trend style videos. I do interviews. But
so you weren't the mastermind behind the video. You just happened to be there.
We all were in a cohort together, filming and shooting with these members.
In many ways, a gang.
Interview content. What'd you say?
A gang, a girl gang.
In many ways, a gang. A multi-generational gang.
Yeah, in some ways. But what I was going to say is that my experience of being in that room was that, you know, listening to members talk, it's a lot as a content creator to sort through what's usable for the internet, right? Like most of our electeds do not know how to talk, one, succinctly enough for the internet, and two, in a way that resonates with young people and their frustrations.
Wait, but don't you really want to hear about egg prices?
So anyway, I'm going to say a little positive shout out though, which is that I heard a packed room of people trying to do interviews fall silent when Jasmine Crockett started talking because she commands a room. She is a fighter. She stands up for herself, her constituents, and for girls everywhere who have absolutely experienced a pretty tough loss in the public eye as of late. And so I want to shout out some people that are doing it really well. I think as you see interviews with Congresswoman Crockett roll out, there's some examples of who's doing it right. And it's not just the content creators that are, having to decide what kind of formats they're doing. It is also about, can the electeds meet them where they're at? And I like to say that these people got goofy, but I'm excited for and think we should keep an eye out for Jasmine Crockett.
More is more.
Social.
These content creators, the little girl gang in your room of content creators, they weren't given a lot to work with, all right, with some of these folks. I'm not going to name names, but some of them weren't built for the internet. And I think that my main takeaway is that the Democrats would be wise right now, March of 2025, to start recruiting people like Deja who can talk and who sound normal and who can be mad and authentically mad and who can fight and who aren't cringe just in their very essence, because some of these people are just cringe at their core. And so there's no amount of great camera work or content creation that can that can make them something that they're not. So we need new people to come in who can speak internet and be normal. And that's my takeaway from that video. That was a great selection, Sebastian. Great job.
And with that, all I can say is Deja Fox, thank you for joining us today.
On that for the last hour, and
I actually just thought of it, and I'm so happy that I did, because I always end these interviews and I'm like, man, I wish I had said this. And I got Deja Fox out of the way. Sorry if you've heard that one enough, but Deja Fox, thank you so much for joining us this week. This has been amazing. To the audience of the Bulwark, who is a little divided on me, at least in the comments. Thank you, and speak your truth. Tim tells me not to read the comments. I think they are so funny. And join us next week for whoever we end up booking.